Why is it that?
Thatgamecompany. Okay, so it's like a silly reason, I think. It's a generic name for a company that tries to do something very specific and distinctive within the industry.
Yeah, it's almost ironic then.
I guess you could say that. I haven't thought of it as ironic, but at least with us, Thatgamecompany, you know what we do.
Yeah, that's true.
What I want is to make something the audience really need. And, you know, it's not necessarily what they tell you in a focus group, you know, because sometimes they don't really know what they need. They might know what they want. So for example, when we work on Flower, we look at what the players are feeling in general. Okay, they've been playing a lot of violent games. Maybe a game that gives them a feeling of tranquility and relaxation will be very new to them.
That discovery process is really just us taking that bigger idea, like, okay, for Flower, we want to make a game about love. Well, how do you define that? I know one interesting example Genova likes to give is, so in Flower, there's a very low moment towards like the middle end of the game. And it's supposed to feel like sad and depressing, but it's not supposed to make you feel so bad that you want to just give up and stop playing. And he was saying, you know, if you tell an artist, give me something that evokes this melancholy in you, the artist can, like, I know what that looks like. I know what colors to use. I know what textures and styles. And if you tell a composer, yeah, we need something kind of like bittersweet, the composer can create that. Now, if you tell a game designer, create a mechanic that makes you feel sad but makes you feel worth going, it's like, well, we haven't seen that before. We don't know what that's like. But we have this idea, well, that's what we want to do, so let's try things. We do a lot of playtesting over months and sometimes years, figuring out what is that right feel. And then when we get it, then we're like, we got it, and it's exciting, but usually that doesn't happen until the very end of a project.
An interesting thing with Flower was that different people even interpreted what they were playing differently. I mean, I heard one guy, he thought he was actually playing the flowers. Yes. I thought I was the wind,
yes.
And he thought he was the flower.
Right. It's like, it's not so clear. It's intended to be the wind, but if you have a different interpretation that is meaningful to you, then that's equally valid. The concept for Journey started, I think, back when Genova was in school. He had this idea to make an MMO where people could connect and they would want to work together and have no words, so they would silently just kind of cooperate. When the company was starting out though, I think with Flow, it just started with like 3 people, and I think it grew to 5. And then on Flower, it started with 7 people on the project, grew to 9. The company was too small and they didn't have the funding to make an MMO. I mean, that's a massive undertaking. So with Journey, he finally felt like, I think we have enough experience and we want to make an online game. We can do this if we just strip the game down to the very essentials of what will make a very powerful experience. So it can still be an online experience, but not with all the things that would require like a 200-person team.
And the interaction is so very subtle in Journey.
Yes.
Without words.
With such subtle interactions, each player has a different experience. It's what they interpret is happening. So even if the person, let's say, you're playing with, that you've connected with, is upset at you, if they're just like jumping around and chirping, you won't know it. Because if you're in a happy mood and you're like, hey, this person's very animated, you're like, oh, they must be very happy too. And I think that's also the beauty and elegance of what was made with this game, is it can try to create this perfect experience of, it's very positive. You won't ever feel like someone is trolling you or trying to give you grief. Yeah,
it really would ruin the mood for the game as well. I think that it's not spoken in any way is very powerful.
Sometimes when I think about it, it does make me emotional, because I think that there is such a beauty in what is trying to be expressed in a life's journey. And it's funny, I didn't see it the first time I played it through, but when I hear about what other people have experienced or what we were trying to accomplish, and then I see it, we could just rush through life and try to accomplish as much as we want on our own because we have nothing to hinder us. But to me, what is life? It's the meaning of life is the relationships we make and the impact we have on each other. I could achieve such great things, but I had no one to share it with, no one to care about me, no one to care that I did that. It's like, oh, so it just has meaning to me, and when my time here is over, no one will remember. I will have made no impact on anyone else. I'm just living for myself. I'm like, that's such a waste of life and of gifts and of opportunities.
And I think, I mean, with Journey, it's already there, it's already in you, but it brings it out.
Exactly. And that's what we're trying to do with our games, is just leave some lasting positive impact.
When we're trying to motivate to ourselves what a game is and what its contents are, it's easier to say it has 10 stages and it has 10 bosses. But what does Journey have? I mean, it's hard to describe. It has something, it has an emotion that sticks with you. But I mean, how do you explain it?
I mean, even after you play it and then you say, well, what was that experience? And you're like, it's just something, you know, because so much of it was in your head because it's such an abstract and like almost pure game. It was like the emotions that you were feeling and what it reminded you of in your own life and what you took out of that story, because also the story is very abstract and you can read a lot into it. So when you're marketing, we don't have, if you would call it a luxury, to say, and there's 10 levels and you can get this special DLC and you can collect points and you can collect items. But I think that kind of misses the point. If you can reduce a game just to say there's this many levels and this many costumes, like, but what was the game about? What was the experience? What was the feeling? And so with Journey, the best way we found to describe it is it's an interactive parable. It's about one's life journey and the intersection you have with others. And I think on a very just simple, like if you just stop there, it does capture what happens in the game and what you will feel, but the specifics are really up to you. And I think the more you try to explain it, the more you take away. So keeping it very simple is nice. However, it doesn't sound sexy. Like, people aren't gonna rush out necessarily to go like, yes, I wanna experience life's journey. They often get confused. They're like, well, why would I wanna play that? Like, what's so exciting? But then when you just put it in their hands and go like, explore, see if it's interesting, if it captivates you. And the way it's designed, just with the movements and the animations and the visuals and like this glittering sand, or just the life you feel from the cloths and the music, it takes you. People cry sometimes. People write us letters and say, I've never cried because of a game. This is the first time I've cried because of your game. This is the first time I've wanted to write the creators and say thank you for making this, and you know, just keep doing it. And you've gained a loyal supporter, and those are some of the best rewards we have. You know, we are in the studio, we don't see, we're not directly talking with players, but it's that one way to get the feedback, to know, hey, what we did was special. Because like when you see a team like this, it's like 13 people, it's like that's it. That's the only way this game is gonna get done, is if we do it. And if we let it slide or if we get lazy, it's not gonna happen, or it's not gonna be as good. We went over budget, like basically there was no more money coming in, and we're like, we're still gonna spend those 3 months working on it.
Through Journey, you know, like we realized how fragile our company could be if, you know, just somehow the Sony's publisher money doesn't line up and we have to pour all our savings into it. And that taught me a good lesson, because, you know, at the end I was somewhat frustrating, because all our games are #1 selling game on PSN, and we've won more awards than anybody, yet the company doesn't have money to keep running. And there's got to be something wrong. There's something unfair here.
When we ran out of money at the end of Journey, there was talks of shutting down the studio, because there wasn't money to keep it going. So the team had to be let go, And until the owners could figure out, hey, what are we going to do here?
Oh, so you did actually let them go?
Yeah. So the future of that game company was very uncertain.
For this particular studio, for the people we have and the passion we have, we are trailblazers. We want to push the boundary. And that's the only way we can survive, is by making new things which we think people will need. I think about it, it's like each company is like a human being. You know, we all have our talent and our potential. And when we couldn't really reach our maximum potential to perform, like for example, if you are an artist but someone asks you to do, you know, brick building, right? And you're not reaching your full potential, you're not happy, you're not valuable. But if you are actually doing what you love and actually making the things you love to other people, and then suddenly you're contributing a lot more than when you are a brick builder.
So for you, there's no alternative really?
No. Unfortunately, in the past, we were bound on a platform, PlayStation 3, on the PlayStation Network, which is a very small portion of all gamers. And then PlayStation as a whole family is 97% male, you know, over 20 to 30 years old. In order to reach that game company's full potential, we need to get out of the PSN, right? We need to put our game into where it deserves, which is a place where everybody have access to. And so what we're doing next is to put it onto all the other platforms and to keep making the games we make. PlayStation is not out of the picture, but I think right now, it's when we say cross-platform, we still have to choose which one to go first, which one we focus our technology on optimizing, and that is something we are still kind of like, you know, feeling out.
In gaining the trust from a publisher, that means that they also take a huge part of what you should have been making.
Yes.
Isn't that a problem?
The problem with this particular model is they are the sole investor and they take up most of the profit. And so we never have enough money built up for our own to invest in a game. We always will be dependent on Sony. And because of that, it will be always exclusive. So in order to break free, we raised venture capital money to fund the company. So we don't have to be tied to any exclusive platforms. And meanwhile, we can still produce the game. So that's what the situation we are in today.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. I gotta go to a meeting now.
Don't bring the mic to the
Right.
meeting.